It's amazing what can happen between you and your ex when you understand the economics of supply and demand of attention. If you've been at the bottom of the power dynamic with your ex ever since the honeymoon phase ended, they probably chased you in the beginning, but later, as the first 6 months wore off and your ex probably pulled away to some extent and you started doing all the heavy lifting in the relationship, you became settled at that bottom of the power dynamic. And this is where you bought into the idea that your ex is stubborn, okay? It's really a mind fuck when you go from the bottom of the power dynamic and you start kind of pulling the strings, manipulating the situation with an understanding of attraction, okay? And you get to pull back and just kind of see what happens when you go into, for example, no contact with your ex. I'm telling you this very, very personally, okay? I was the biggest nerd in the fucking world growing up. I had a really hard time looking people in the eye. I had a really hard time making friends. I was very judgmental, very black and white seeing. I was depressed. I had a lot of social problems, and especially with girls, they could like me in the beginning. Like I could get a little girlfriend or whatever, but then within a week or two, like she just goes away because I just, like I wasn't cool. And what it felt to really grow up with those kind of, like I let that story sink in, right? And that became the narrative for a really long time. And what it felt to live most of my life that way, up until like my mid 30s, where finally, I got a divorce. So I met somebody online, had a long relationship, had kids, and in my mid 30s, for the first time, start dating again, okay? And using these principles of attraction in my dating life, it was a total mind fuck to go from the person all the way at the bottom rung of the ladder to actually kind of playing the game, playing cat and mouse, and leaning into this idea that I'm the prize, okay? And letting the other person do the work. Now, when you do this, you have to rule out a lot of people because not everybody's going to chase you, right? Not everybody's going to be into you enough to put in the effort. But you got into a relationship with your ex at one point, which means that you are their cup of tea, okay? So you don't have to move on from them real quick. That you do that in the dating world, not with your ex. But it does mean that you will not accept less than enthusiastic behavior. In other words, you won't give them your attention if they're not giving you theirs. So you got to learn how to meter out your attention based upon what you're getting back. So if you're going through a breakup, you go into no contact, you let your ex text you first. And then when you are talking, you kind of put just a little bit less effort in the conversation than they do, and you allow them to chase you. This requires faith because you're worried that they're going to go run off and find somebody else and forget about you. So you have to have the faith, it's not really faith, it's real. But you do that and then you get to see the result later. And it's a total mind fuck. Now, if you want some help getting your ex back, click on my profile and set up a call with me.